Welcome back to Purr Decoder. I'm Dr. Luna, your resident curiosity expert. Today, we're diving into the history of the world, but with a twist. We're looking at it through the eyes of our feline overlords. Let's wind the clocks back to May 27th, 1941. The world is at war, and the mighty German battleship Bismarck has just sunk after a spectacularly fierce and devastating firefight. Out of a massive crew of 2,200, only 118 souls made it out alive. It was a bleak day in naval history, to say the least, but amidst the floating debris and the utter chaos of the sea, when a British destroyer finally rolled up to collect the surviving prisoners of war, they stumbled upon a survivor that absolutely nobody had on their bingo card that day. Clinging for dear life to a floating wooden plank was a very wet, very annoyed black and white tuxedo cat. Yes, you heard me right. A cat survived the sinking of the Bismarck. The British crew scooped him up, probably thinking, well, this is a weird prisoner. For the next several months, this little guy lived comfortably on the British ship. He hunted rats with ruthless efficiency and single-handedly raised the morale of the entire British crew. It was a sweet gig, honestly. Plenty of food and an ocean view. But then, tragedy struck again. A sudden, devastating torpedo strike shattered the hull of the ship, sending it straight to the bottom of the unforgiving ocean. The ship was gone, but miraculously, our feline friend was not. This cat was apparently made of rubber and sheer stubbornness because he survived yet another shipwreck. They affectionately nicknamed him Unsinkable Sam, which is arguably the coolest name a cat has ever received. Sam rode all the way to Gibraltar with the rescued crew. You'd think Sam would want a nice, safe desk job after that. But no, he served as a ship's cat on 3 more vessels, because apparently the ocean was his true calling. And believe it or not, one of those 3 ships also sank. Sam survived that one too. This cat had used up like 8 of his 9 lives by the time he called it quits. He eventually retired to the Belfast Home for Sailors, presumably spending his golden years telling tall tales of torpedoes, giant sea rats, and salty ocean breezes. Now, when you look at a cat today, sleeping for 16 hours and aggressively knocking your water glass off the table, you might not think of them as serviceable sailors, or frankly, as cooperative companions of any kind. They have a solid reputation for being aloof, highly independent, and slightly judgmental of our life choices. But history tells a very different story. Cats have actually been working alongside humans for thousands of years. It's a partnership where they help us just as often. So how exactly did these solitary, highly effective killing machines go from wild predators roaming the desert to naval officers and our favorite sofa sidekicks? To answer that, we need to go back way further than World War II. We're talking more than 10,000 years ago to a geographical place known as the Fertile Crescent. This was the dawn of the Neolithic era. Humanity was going through a massive transition. We were tired of chasing mammoths and decided to try this new fad called farming. People were finally learning to bend nature to their will. For the first time ever, farmers were producing much more food than they could actually eat in one sitting. This was a huge win for human civilization, but it created a brand new problem. Where do you put all this leftover food? You can't just leave it out in the open. So, these clever Neolithic farmers started storing their excess grain. They built large underground pits and short clay silos to keep their hard-earned harvest safe. But while these silos protected the grain from rain and wind, they inadvertently sent out a massive, invisible, all-you-can-eat buffet signal to the local wildlife. Specifically, these massive stores of food attracted hordes of rodents. Mice and rats threw the biggest parties of the Neolithic era right inside those clay silos. It was an absolute disaster for the farmers. But as they say, one man's pest infestation is another species' all-you-can-eat buffet. Enter the furry hero of our story. The massive rodent population naturally attracted their apex predator, Felis sylvestris libica. This was the wildcat found roaming across North Africa and Southwest Asia. These wildcats were not your cuddly purring fluff balls. They were fast, fierce, strictly carnivorous hunters. They were the absolute top tier of small game assassins. Surprisingly, they were actually remarkably similar in size and general appearance to today's domestic cats. If you squinted, you might mistake one for a very angry tabby. But there were some key differences. The ancient wildcats were significantly more muscular, built purely for survival in harsh environments. They were absolutely ripped. They also possessed distinctively striped coats, perfect camouflage for blending seamlessly into the tall, dried grasses and rocky terrain of their natural habitats. And perhaps most importantly, they were fiercely solitary. They were much less social towards other cats, and they definitely wanted absolutely nothing to do with humans. But the sheer abundance of easy prey in these rodent-infested granaries was just too good to pass up. It drew in these typically solitary animals like a powerful magnet. Suddenly, you had a bunch of highly territorial wildcats forced into close proximity because the hunting was just that spectacular. It was a very tense situation. Slowly but surely, the wildcats learned to tolerate the presence of other cats during mealtime. The food was plentiful enough that fighting wasn't worth the energy. And more importantly, they learned to tolerate the strange two-legged creatures who built the granaries. The humans were loud, but they didn't seem to eat the mice. We believe that the early farmers, in turn, were thrilled. They likely tolerated these fierce little predators because they provided an incredible service: pest control. It was the ultimate ancient business transaction. The cats got an endless buffet of plump rodents, and the humans got to actually keep the grain they worked hard to grow. This mutually beneficial relationship was so successful that it literally changed the course of history. The cats had officially found their niche in human society. When these Neolithic farmers eventually decided to pack up and migrate, searching for new lands, they certainly didn't leave their furry pest controllers behind. The cats migrated right alongside them. They traveled from Anatolia, spreading slowly but steadily into Europe and across the vast Mediterranean region. As human civilization expanded, so did our modes of transportation. We started building bigger and better ships to explore the world and trade exotic goods. But ships have a major flaw. They are floating havens for vermin. Rats and mice were a massive scourge of the seven seas, causing endless headaches for early sailors. These stowaways didn't just eat the precious provisions meant for the crew. They also gnawed aggressively at the lines of rope, which is terrifying out on the ocean. Because of this constant threat, cats had long since become absolutely essential sailing companions. You couldn't run a successful ship without a feline security team. Around the exact same time these Anatolian globe-trotting cats were setting sail and exploring the world, another major feline revolution was happening elsewhere. Down in North Africa, the ancient Egyptians were busy domesticating their own local population of wildcats, and they took the relationship to a whole new level. The Egyptians deeply revered these animals. Sure, they appreciated that cats killed rats, but they were even more impressed by their ability to dispatch venomous snakes. A creature that could casually hunt birds, eliminate rodents, and protect your home from deadly cobras? To the Egyptians, that wasn't just a pet, that was divine. Consequently, domestic cats became incredibly important to ancient Egyptian religious culture. They weren't just tolerated, they were celebrated and worshipped. They gained true immortality in Egyptian art. Cats were heavily featured in vibrant frescoes, carved into intricate hieroglyphs, and immortalized in grand statues. When a beloved family cat passed away, they were often mummified with the utmost respect and buried alongside their owners, ensuring they'd be together in the afterlife. Just like their northern cousins, Egyptian cats also took to the water. Egyptian ship cats constantly cruised up and down the mighty Nile River on trading boats. Their primary job on these riverboats was crucial, holding those poisonous river snakes at bay, ensuring the safe transport of goods across the empire. Eventually, these Egyptian cats graduated from riverboats to much larger seafaring vessels. And just like that, they too began to migrate from port to distant port. Fast forward a bit to the time of the Roman Empire. The world was more connected than ever before, and massive trade routes were bustling with maritime activity. Massive ships traveling back and forth between India and Egypt began carrying a new feline passenger, the lineage of the Central Asian wildcat, Felis sylvestris ornata. These cats mixed and mingled with the existing populations, adding their own unique genetic traits to the ever-expanding global family tree of the domestic cat. Centuries later, during the Middle Ages, the world saw another massive expansion of maritime travel, and once again, cats were right there on the front lines. Egyptian cats, known for their pest control prowess, actually voyaged all the way up to the freezing Baltic Sea on the iconic longships of Viking seafarers. Yes, Viking cats were a real thing. Imagine a fierce Viking warrior, and right beside him, an equally fierce tabby cat keeping the ship's biscuit supply safe from rats. By this point in history, both the Near Eastern and the North African wildcats had been largely tamed. They were accustomed to human presence and the perks of ship life. These intrepid feline explorers continued to travel relentlessly across Europe, hitching rides on merchant vessels, naval ships, and exploratory fleets. Eventually, as human exploration reached its absolute peak, these cats set sail for entirely new frontiers, arriving in distant places like Australia and the Americas. They truly conquered the globe, not through warfare, but through an undeniable usefulness and an uncanny ability to nap anywhere, even on a rocking boat. Today, when scientists look at the genetics of our modern feline friends, the results are fascinating. Most house cats alive today can trace their roots back easily. They are descended primarily from either the Near Eastern lineage or the Egyptian lineage of Felis sylvestris libica. That ancient blood still flows in their veins. But here is where the story of the cat takes a wildly different turn from almost every other domesticated animal on the face of the planet. Let's compare them to dogs for a second. Humans have spent centuries heavily selectively breeding dogs for very specific traits, sizes, and specialized jobs. We turned wolves into pugs, Great Danes, and dachshunds. We completely altered their physical structures and their fundamental genetics to suit our needs. But close analysis of the genomes and coat patterns of modern cats tells a completely different story. We haven't really done much to them at all. Genetically speaking, the fluffy little weirdo currently sleeping on your laptop is remarkably similar to the ancient wildcats that hunted in the Fertile Crescent. Sure, we've encouraged some fun coat colors and patterns, we like calicos and tuxedos, but underneath the fur, they are essentially the exact same machine. We haven't bred them to herd sheep or retrieve ducks or guard our homes. We mostly just let them hang around because they were already doing a great job catching mice. Apart from making them slightly more social and a bit more docile so they don't shred our curtains entirely, we've done very little to alter their natural behaviors. They still possess the exact same hunting instincts, the same dietary requirements, and the same mysterious agility as their completely wild ancestors. In other words, when you invite a cat into your home, you aren't really bringing in a fully domesticated pet in the traditional sense of the word. Cats today are more or less exactly as they have always been for the past 10,000 years. They are, at their core, wild animals living in our living rooms. They are still fierce hunters, perfectly evolved apex predators of the small game world. Your ankles are just convenient, slow-moving practice targets. And perhaps the most hilarious part of this entire 10,000-year relationship is how they actually view us. It's definitely not how dogs view us. Dogs see us as pack leaders, as their entire world. Cats? Cats are creatures that fundamentally do not see us as their keepers or their masters in any way. To a cat, we are simply large, clumsy, mostly hairless roommates who are surprisingly good at opening cans of wet food and providing warm laps. We are staff. We are the help. We are the giant weirdos who clean their litter boxes while they watch us with a mix of mild amusement and utter disdain. And you know what? Given our long intertwined history together, from the granaries of Anatolia to the wooden decks of Viking longships, from the sinking of the Bismarck to this sunny spot on your favorite living room rug, they might not be wrong about who is actually in charge here. They figured out a long time ago that if they just act cute and occasionally catch a mouse, we will literally build our entire lives around their comfort. It is arguably the greatest, most successful con job in the history of the animal kingdom, and we happily fall for it every single day. So the next time your cat completely ignores you when you call their name, just remember, you are talking to a tiny, untamed tiger with a rich maritime history. They've sailed the 7 seas, protected ancient empires, and survived exploding battleships. They frankly don't have time for your silly little games. Unless, of course, that game involves a laser pointer. Then all ancient dignity goes completely out the window in a flurry of furry chaos. That red dot awakens the spirit of the mighty Felis sylvestris libica. It's the only thing that reminds them they are apex predators, not just professional nappers. It's truly amazing how a species so fiercely independent managed to weave itself so seamlessly into the fabric of human civilization across the globe. They didn't change for us. They just found a way to make our world work perfectly for them. That takes a special kind of evolutionary genius. We built the ships, they hitched the rides. We grew the food, they ate the pests attracted to it. It's the ultimate symbiotic life hack. So let's raise a glass or a bowl of premium wet food to Unsinkable Sam and all his ancestors who successfully manipulated us into loving them. The history of the world according to cats is a story of opportunistic survival, endless buffets, and finding the absolute warmest spot to sleep on every continent. And as long as we keep building warm houses and opening cans, they'll probably stick around for another 10,000 years. Just don't expect them to fetch. They happily leave the eager-to-please stuff to the dogs. Cats have an empire to passively rule from the supreme comfort of their cardboard boxes. This has been Purr Decoder, exploring the quirky, unexpected side of history. I'm Dr. Luna, and I hope you look at your feline overlords with a bit more respect today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into feline history, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and share this video with a fellow cat servant. Until next time, stay curious, keep asking why not, and always check your ship for stowaways before setting sail. See you in the next video.